Hello, and welcome to our Amplified Life. Amy and I are excited to bring just an intimate conversation with you today. And we always like to keep these really timely, kind of what's going on with our life and maybe some thoughts that we're going through. And so today we are talking about imposter syndrome. We thought it might be kind of fun to just dive into that. I don't know if it's fun or not, but
I was just going to say it feels a little heavy, actually.
Well, we're going to keep it as light as possible, but I think it's something that we all battle at different times, and it may be it'll arise in a lot of different forms. So for me, there's times where I feel completely out of place. There's other times in life where I just haven't felt quite at home in my body. How does it arise for you, Amy?
Well, it's one of those things that's really hard because we have all the personality tests and all the things out there to tell you exactly why you do these things. And it's supposed to help you relate to yourself so much better and improve on yourself. And lately it feels so heavy to me. I had someone recently tell me that I'm very vocal, which we know I am, that my words can be very strong, which we know they can be, and that I can be very intimidating and bulldozing of people. How heavy is that? So
that feels pretty heavy.
It's one of those things where in the moment where I'm very passionate and like I want to put all in, if you're getting told that you're repelling people or that you're intimidating people, when all you're doing is being super excited about it, that's pretty hard to swallow. And so I've been sitting on that. I think one thing that has been helping me has really been, I've really been kind of thinking about my grandma. She was 5 feet tall. She had a very hard childhood. She lost her mother and her brother within 2 weeks of each other, but she was a fighter and she had to fight for the things in her life that she needed. And I truly believe that ancestral things are handed down, not just alcoholism and not just those things that, genetic codes. I think traumas and personality traits, all those things are also handed to us. And I don't want to get emotional.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I also believe that we are armed with different skills and talents and things that we need at different times in our life. And so that's always important too. Something that I have been told many of the same things as you. One thing that I think it's been years now, but I get very in the zone, very focused. And I'm kind of a thinker and an absorber, so I can't always put into words exactly what I'm feeling in the moment. I think sometimes I have to just kind of step back away and think about it. And then I'm able to verbally express what's happening, or I just internalize a lot of things. And so I remember I was at a conference one time, and this has been probably 18 years ago, and we had just come out of a session, and I was walking down the hall. There's hundreds and hundreds of other women. I was walking down the hall to the next session, and one of I can't say that we were close, so I'm going to call her an acquaintance, but she came up and she says, "Oh my gosh, you have got to smile." And I was just kind of taken completely aback because I thought, well, wait, I'm walking, I'm thinking, what? And she says, "You just look so intimidating. You've got to smile." And I said, "Oh, okay." I had never thought of myself as an intimidating person before. I'm the one that usually felt intimidated, especially at that point in my life. I just everything was kind of overwhelming. I felt completely out of my realm. And I had no idea that anybody could possibly be intimidated by me. And yeah, so that was kind of bizarre.
Well, and I do think that's why we were drawn together, right? Because we're very emotional when it comes to caring for people that we love, animals, nature. We need that. But we don't really get involved too much with the back and forth drama of things. And so you and I have never had even a disagreement. I don't think we've talked about things. It's been very matter of fact, and we just go on with our day. And so I think when my world gets turned upside down, it's when I think I'm being very helpful, being very matter of fact. This is a great solution. How do you feel about this? And all of a sudden, like, emotion is thrown at me, like, I'm so sad that you said that, and I'm like, what? And I have to take a step back and go, wait a minute. How did I say that came across in that way? Because in this moment, I felt a sense of urgency. And I think it's the sense of urgency, whether it's we've got to get a project done. We definitely, like, even when I work out with purpose. So I don't work out to socialize. I work out because I have an hour. I want to go get it done because I want to feel stronger, not even thinner. I just want to feel stronger because that's where I know my center comes from. And so I've kind of been thinking about that lately, but I thought about my little grandma and I thought, how lonely had she had to be in her life to know, because she was hilarious. I'm kind of funny too sometimes. And so, yeah. So to feel like you were just doing everything you could to help others, and to know that the way they felt about you can be very much a hard thing to swallow. So I was thinking about her and I thought, oh gosh, if she can get through it, I can, like, but I think about that in terms of how I serve people. Do I need to shut my mouth? I mean, you and I are both in a very vocal job. It's our job to ask the right questions. How does this feel on your body? But I think at that point, also people are there to maybe come and listen and hear what we have to say, so they don't maybe feel like that. I don't know. How do you feel like you said back then you felt very intimidated? I relate to that 100%. I was the girl that only made cheerleader once. I was what I considered the fat friend. There's a lot of hidden insecurities when it kind of like throws to me that I've overcome and I'm fine with now. Like, they don't bother me at all anymore. But how do you feel like you've coped or shifted so that it doesn't feel so much like imposter syndrome, but that you are being very authentic, but also in your way? Because I think the hard thing for me is having somebody tell me I'm doing it wrong when I want to do it their way, but I only know how to do it the way I know how to do it. Does that make sense?
Well, I think for me, it's less about fitting somebody else's mold and reshaping myself. And it's more about, okay, I am who I am, but how can I show up for this person better? What is it that they're needing from me? Is it just, reformatting how I say something? Is it taking a step back and really assessing, do I need to change something? Or is this just a reflection of how they're feeling in this moment? And so sometimes I think it's not our responsibility to change. And others, I truly believe that, okay, it is. And really, I think if we're getting the same feedback from multiple sources, then okay, maybe it's something that we need to step back and take a look at. But maybe it's just that that's how they're feeling and they're broadcasting that on us. Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Well, it is sort of a hard thing to navigate, especially as we're older.
Mhm.
because life is busy, so to juggle um, serving others and then emotions and then all the things that we have to do. Then also there's emotion in the home, with family and friends. And so it is a hard thing to kind of navigate and juggle. And I actually feel like because I'm more aware of myself, it almost feels heavier. So when I was younger, I was a little bit naive to it. I just kind of did my thing, love me or hate me, it is what it is. But I think the older I'm getting, the more aware I am of others, which is a positive, right? I mean, we need to think of others.
It is. We
Yeah.
do. We do. But there again, we still have to be our authentic self. I don't believe that we've got to, at this point in our lives, I don't think we need to fit into somebody else's mold. Do we need to, if it's someone we love, then yes, we need to kind of show up in a way that they can relate to and do what we can. But that does not mean twisting yourself into somebody that you're not.
Have you read any good books that have really stood out to you when you can see that somebody, because I think as much as our personalities are a strength to us, they can be a weakness at times, but I wouldn't want to be without it, because I know that feeling that might feel intimidating to other people is what has actually molded me and created courage. And it's helped
Yes.
me fight some really hard uphill battles, not only within myself, but maybe that others are experiencing. And I wanted to share a book I just found, and it's really cool. It's pretty relevant. The author is actually Jonathan Isaac. So he is an NBA player for the Orlando Magic. And I don't know if you remember, but it was in the news. It was when all the BLM, everything, all that was coming out. And he was the only player that didn't stand for the anthem, that didn't wear. And let me show you the cover because it's just really cool. But he tells his story, and it's basically the whole book. I've been listening to it for 2 days. Let me show you the cover.
So is
So
he
you
the only player that didn't kneel for the anthem? Is that what you said? He didn't stand for the anthem, but I think you
no,
meant that he didn't kneel
yes,
for the anthem.
he didn't kneel, and he is
Yeah.
a man of color, but he also did not wear the Black Lives Matter shirt that the NBA wanted everyone to wear. And so the book is titled Why I Stand. And he goes back and tells his story about his youth, what brought him to that moment. And he talks about his insecurities and how there was a lot of things that he wouldn't have had that courage and that peace had he not finally found himself. And so his journey of that has been really interesting. And I personally, when it's sort of a biography, I love to get it on Audible because I want to hear from like a first person voice. I want to hear their perspective. I want to hear the different tones in their voice. And he talks about the pressures of the NBA and how it is to succumb to certain things. But he found the Lord in his life, and he found mentors and people outside of the NBA. And truly, his story is very impactful. And I've been thinking about his story a lot as I've been listening to it. He has a very, very calming voice. I recommend everybody listen to it, whether you think you should have or not, just to hear his story and to listen to the courage it may have taken. Because at that time, at the beginning of COVID and all the things, I mean, people were losing their job, their careers, they were losing all of those things. And so it's been a very heartwarming experience to listen to this young man's journey to finding himself, because imposter syndrome for him in the NBA was that he didn't feel like he was anything special. He didn't feel like he should be in the NBA. If he had a bad game, he felt like he was letting everybody down. And I think bringing that topic full circle, that can be how we feel in our daily lives. If we react funny, then we're letting people down, or if we're just in a moment that, and I think we have to really remember that as long as we're authentic, good or bad, then we can own those emotions and we can learn to love ourselves from the inside out.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to listen to that. I also love to listen to autobiographies that the authors read themselves. It's absolutely incredible. So, spoiler alert though, I was completely out of the loop on all of those things that were happening until months after they were happening, because I had completely stopped social media. I had stopped watching or listening to any news. I was completely in the dark and I can't even remember what had happened. I think I was talking to a friend and she said something about riots and I was like, riots? What are you talking about? And then I had to come back and talk to Kevin because I was like, how come you haven't said anything about this? He's constantly talking about news and things. And he said, oh, I just didn't think that you really needed to be worried about it.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I didn't even know who this player was until yesterday. Like I
That's
literally
incredible.
saw his story and I thought, so I saw his story on Instagram. So I went to his profile page and I did some digging. I said, I want to know why he stood. I didn't know what he stood for. I didn't know anything, but his page seemed very intriguing. And, I think for me, the national anthem represents everybody's beliefs, not mine, but it represents the fact that we can all, if you want to kneel, you choose to kneel and that's your choice. If you don't, you don't. And so I'm very interested in some of those things to see a different perspective. Also, because I'm teaching my daughter about the Constitution right now and all the things in our country. And it just felt very relevant. And so I thought, well, I want to support this guy that, took this big wild chance. The interesting thing was though, is he said he felt very calm the whole time he stood there. And I thought that's pretty cool. That's when you're no longer in imposter syndrome, right? That's when like when a calmness comes over you, that you're where you need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. You had asked about books, and one of the things, so I am a recovering people pleaser, and I continue to sometimes battle with that, most of the time not. Now, I will say that during the time when I finally decided enough is enough, there were many times that I had to go to people and apologize because I kind of went a complete 360 on it. But one of the books that I absolutely love is by Dr. Henry Cloud, and it's Boundaries. It's phenomenal. In fact, anything that he has written, I absolutely love. And it was just life-changing for me. And
I've read his whole series and I completely concur. So if anybody has not read, and Dr. John Townsend co-authors the business one too, and the marriage one.
yeah, they're
awesome.
phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So there's times when I feel like imposter syndrome sneaks in on me more than others. So it used to be that I could not stand in a room with different groups of, okay, well, one of my worst nightmares is walking into a room with people that are already there, like having to make an entrance, which is not even an entrance, it's just walking into a room, right? That was one of the things that I really had a hard time with. Speaking in front of any size of group used to be, like I would want to throw up that bad. And so there are times when I still have to kind of revert back to some of the coping mechanisms that I had adopted, which was I did before Amy Cuddy even made it a popular thing. I had to do the power pose and like really get myself psyched out and put my little cape on and just envision that I was the most powerful person in the room, whether I was or not, which usually not. And just like own it. And there were so many times that I had to do that. And it just then became a habit. So now it just really there's no thought process behind it. I just kind of embraced the power that I used to feel when I did that. And now, while it's still sometimes intimidating talking to rooms of hundreds of people, it's not something that I feel like I have to throw up about. So I love that we're able to kind of expand what's comfortable and really limit the number of times or the spaces that we feel like an imposter in, or at least that's what I found for me. Is that true and correct for you as well, Amy?
Yes, and it's interesting how when people come across and meet us in that certain phase of life, what their impression may be of us as well. I think that our timeline can shift. It's interesting how you said make an entrance into a room. So you know that I talked a couple videos ago that I started going to a local little Colville. It's called Colville Fit. It's a little workout group in Colville. And I've worked out my entire life in a basement by myself. The only time I've worked out in like a group fitness class was when we would go to Scoop and I would work out with Jeannie, Shannon, and a couple people, but I felt very comfortable there. I didn't feel like I was just I never felt like group fitness was for me. First of all, I don't like to pee my pants when I jump, like there were little insecurities that would come out that I'd be like, oh, no, no, no. And when I work out, I do work out with purpose. Like I want to go and be done. But what I can tell you is it took so much courage for me to go down. I knew half of the women. I didn't know the other half. They're so much younger than me. But I got a friend to go with me, and she's no longer going. It wasn't the right fit for her, but now I go every week and I love it. So I think sometimes it takes a buddy to help us kind of get out of ourselves. And the one thing I've noticed is, we can laugh and joke and have a good time. Sometimes it's chatty, sometimes it's not. Nobody cares because we're at our own little stations and we rotate and it's awesome. And then we say goodbye and leave. Like it happened to be that perfect kind of mix for me. I'm still intimidated by women there that have been working out forever. I hope that I don't intimidate them. If anything, if I want to help them, if they're next to me or I'm next to them, and I love a little bit of conversation, it's a good mix for me. But to go down by myself, I drug my feet for 6 months. I'd known about it for a long time and I just could not get myself to go down there. It's so funny that we have this perception of ourselves, or that we let a little bit of fear close a door that could bring some joy into our lives. And I do it all the time. So find a buddy, I don't know.
And that not only gives you kind of a security blanket, but it also gives you accountability too, because where it's easy for me anyway, it's easier to cancel on myself than it is to cancel on somebody else. And so if I know I've got something with someone, then I'm going to be there. 100%. If I know I have something with me, then I'll probably be there.
Well, that's the great thing, when you have a buddy, there is some accountability there. And I think it's a good self-check. And it also keeps us motivated, and we find some joy and some laughter. And you're right. Sometimes it's just hard. Sometimes we're not in that emotional space, but other people can bring us forward. One other thing before we wrap it up, is there any kind of, I know we've talked about it in the past, is there any kind of personality tool that you love? I know Cabby Specific does one called See Me. People probably haven't heard of it. Rebecca and I are mirrors. So I'm dominantly, the color would be yellow and then red. And I believe you're red, then yellow, correct?
Yes.
Which is probably why this has worked so well for us, because there's not a lot of emotion other than joy and happiness and let's get to work with us. And then the emotion comes when we haven't seen each other, or, that's there. I would do anything.
Or when we actually get to be in the same room, sitting on your couch and having the time of our lives.
I know. So that's there. But I know, I used to really dive into a lot of that stuff, and I almost felt, I still love it. I still think it gives me perspective, but I also feel like it can be a rabbit hole that can entirely be exhausting and not in a healthy way, because I have a tendency to dive into everything. That's sort of like where I go. And so have you had the same experience where you love something for a while and then you just feel like it's too much? Or do you feel like you can use those tools in moderation and they actually help you? And what would your favorite be?
Oh, that's a lot. Okay,
I know.
so yes, I have done basically every personality test under the sun, as you have, I believe, and I always find them fascinating. So I love the Enneagram. I think that that has been really useful. They've all been useful at different times and for different reasons. So yeah, and I do, you and I have kind of, well, you more than me, I have dipped my toe into the water of the human design element. And again, super fascinating. It's something that I'd like to read more about, just have not had the time to really
Right.
dig into that. I just, it's important to me to just kind of know, okay, who am I? How do I meet the world? How do I feel about how I meet the world? And then how does the world see me in general? And I think that personality types really do that. The assessments and then the coaching that goes along with it, it really kind of gives you a generalization. None of it is going to be as specific and individual as each of us are, but there's always going to be the same type things that go through each different test, assessment, training, all of that. And so it's been rather fascinating just how they all intermix. The Enneagram has been the most recent, besides the Color Me that you visited about, but I do appreciate many of the tools that go along with that. And I've read, what is it? The Path Back to You.
Oh, yeah.
That was a great book for the Enneagram. But it's really, I feel like it's a lifelong journey, but I love to learn. I love to read. I'm always trying to grow. I know you are too. And so that's another thing that just really kind of binds the two of us together, is just that mutual love for growth and personal development and being the best that we possibly can. And I think, again, that's why it hits us in all the feelers when we are not, when we don't, when we're not perceived the way that we see ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's not how we want to show up as our best self and think that we do every single day. I'm
Well,
pretty sure we do.
sometimes I just stay in bed and keep the sheets over my head and be like, the sun will come
Yeah.
back up tomorrow, you know.
And some
But
days we need that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think through this whole journey, what it has done for me personally is it has really helped me have somebody that I could bounce things off of and truly learn how I can handle situations better. Because I don't have an ill will towards anybody. And I think that's what you're saying. We just want to show up our best self. It doesn't always work out that way. And generally when we're feeling uncomfortable, it's because there's something maybe bigger going on that is taking our mind and keeping us distracted, and it's hard to show up that way. But if anything, if anyone is out there watching us and you love us, we just want you to know that we love you. And if you ever have anything that's like makes you feel like you've been treading water for so long that you are taking water in and coming down, just know you're not alone. And there are so many resources that we can provide. We can even be a listening ear if that's something that you need. But just know we too feel like an imposter at certain times of the day. So, speaking of imposter and not feeling like ourselves, tune in next week because Rebecca and I will literally not be ourselves for it's called our spooky sweater weather episode. So, definitely come back, stay tuned. If you enjoyed this, let us know in the comments what truly interests you or what connected with you. maybe questions that you have. We'd love to maybe do a follow-up and come back and answer some of those questions. So
And give us your best guesses as to who we're going to be showing up as week.
Yes. Comment. Who do you think it'll be? I don't think they'll ever guess, but it's going to be a fun one. So thank you for tuning in. Be sure to ring the bell, subscribe, do all the things, and share this with your friends if this is something that really connected to you. Thank you again. We love you all.